Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
Yo, it's your boy, the odd guy himself, Malik King Scotty.
Hi, I'm Charlie Edwards.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 79 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host Joey Coastman. I'm joined this week by the infamous Ayaz Sumra. Ayaz, how you doing?
I'm good, Joey. How are you?
Very good, my friend, very good. So this show is, as I said, episode number 79. To be honest, I really didn't see us going this far. I didn't think we'd actually be here at episode 79. So it is remarkable that we're still going. Thank you very much again for our continued support from the listeners. This show, of course, is, if you haven't listened before, part one, we're going to talk about the fights from last week. Part two, we're going to talk about the fights coming up this week. We will also have a little segment where we talk about the news, and I'm sure we're going to also be predicting a few fights this week, as there's a lot of different fights coming on in the UK, fights that are happening worldwide that we're going to get into. So we will get onto that, and we will predict a few outcomes. We're going to start with part one now. Part one, we're going to start with a card that happened last week. This one, we're going to start with a place called the MGM National Harbour in Oxon Hill, Maryland, USA. One fight really to mention on that bill, one proper fight, another fight on the undercard. We'll start with the main event. Dimitri Bivol successfully defended his interim WBA World Light Heavyweight title and moved to 10-0 with a TKO in round 4 over Samuel Clarkson. Samuel Clarkson 19-3, now 19-4. Clarkson was down twice in round 1 and once in round 4, I believe. Also on the bill, Hasim Rahman Jr., the son of Hasim Rahman Sr., of course. He made his debut. He picked up a TKO in round 1, so he starts his career with a bang. His opponent was also making his debut, so not too sure how good he was or anything, but good win there for Hasim Rahman Jr. Going over now to Spain in the Palacio de los Deportes in San Pedro, Andalusia. Andoni Gargo, we're going to give him a little mention, former opponent of Lee Selby in Lee Selby's last fight. He picked up a TKO, or a KO actually, in round 2 over Mark Cesaros, who had an unbeaten record of 4-0, so a decent little win there for Andoni Gargo, back to winning ways after being, beaten pretty convincingly by Lee Selby. Moving over now to the SSE Hydro in Glasgow, Scotland, United Kingdom. This bill was a bill that certainly got my eyes last week. Ayaz, firstly, we're going to talk about the undercard. I think we should start with the undercard. The televised bill seemed to last very long. There was, if I'm not mistaken, we're going to get round to it, but if I'm not mistaken, they showed, I think it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fights on the televised bill on Sky Sports, and 4 of them went the distance. So it was one of those kind of fight cards what you were really looking forward to, but it kind of went a little bit too long. And I don't want to be overcritical because, you know, the guys that were fighting were in good fights. It was a decent little bill, but it did kind of have that feel to it, that card. We're going to start with the undercard. I think we should start with Lawrence Okoli, the only man on the televised feed that picked up a knockout. He scored another knockout in round 1. He had his opponent down 3 times, so his record now 2-0 with 2 first round knockouts. Lawrence Okoli is a man who, I was watching it, and to be honest, he is a little bit stiff. He's a little bit over eager to perform. But we should remember that he is also, I think he's only had about 30 maybe 31 fights in his whole career. That's amateur and pro. So he's very, very inexperienced. And to get into the Olympics last year and to kickstart his pro career in the way he has, I think people need to bear that in mind, including myself. It's not time to just jump the gun with him. He's only a 2-fight novice as a pro, and he's only a 20-something fight novice as an amateur. So we do need to bear that in mind. We do need to definitely, bide our time with him. We need to be patient with him, but he definitely is a talent. To be completely honest, even though he had his opponent down 3 times, and his opponent had a record of 22-29, by the way, so a decent record there for just a second fight. Even though he was down 3 times, it was kind of waved off a little bit too quick. I know that might sound a bit mad, but he was getting quite into it, I think, the opponent of Okolie. And he landed with a couple of good shots that really hit Okolie flush. I mean, they didn't seem to bother him, but that was a bit question marky, So, good win nonetheless for Lawrence Okolie, but, we do want to see him in there. It's funny because we want to see him in there with these high level fights already. We're already talking about Isaac Chamberlain's and how, and whatever else, but we really have to pace this guy, and he's very inexperienced, so of course we've got to be patient, but we are excited for his future. Josh Kelly now I'm going to talk about. He was in there against Jay Byrne, who had a record of 4-1, so a good start there to Josh Kelly's pro career, a debut obviously. It was scheduled for 6 rounds, which is always good. It's good to see prospects or debutants and former Olympians going in there with the 6 rounds rather than a 4-rounder or anything like that. Josh Kelly won every round. He you would have never watched it and thought that this was his debut. He was supremely confident. His hands were down. He was relying on reflexes. He was very fast. He looked powerful. He looked the part. From what I saw there, he looked like a star in the making. He really, really did. I don't follow the amateur game too much, so I can't really tell you too much about how decorated his amateur career is, but I will say that he did well in the Olympics last year. And, it was refreshing to see a debut like that, because you do not see that much. Obviously, he's being guided by Adam Booth in the training terms, but he was really impressive. And I've got to say, some people may disagree. He looked a lot like David Haye, like a young David Haye, in the way that he was relying on his reflexes, the way he was throwing shots. His footwork was really good. He honestly resembled a lot of the style that David Haye used to have when he was in his cruiserweight days, maybe a couple fights at heavyweight. He did look a lot like David Haye, so that was really good, because David Haye's style of fighting was really exciting. So it was great to see that in Josh Kelly. Good win for him. He's now 1-0. Moving up the bill, Joe Ham picked up a points win over Scott McCormack, 5-2 with 1 draw, now 5-3 with 1 draw. And Joe Ham also picked up the vacant Celtic Super Bantamweight title. Also on the bill, Charlie Flynn was in there against Ryan Collins. Ryan Collins 13-2, Charlie Flynn 8-0 undefeated. An accidental head clash left Flynn with a diagonal cut above the left eyebrow, which required 25 stitches, and it went down as a technical draw after 3 rounds. It had to be stopped because the cut was so bad. So that's a bit of a halt, a bit of a spanner in the works there for Charlie Flynn, but nonetheless he gets out again, I suppose. Charlie Edwards was on the bill as well. He fought Ian Butcher. This one was for the vacant British super flyweight title. Charlie Edwards won every single round very clearly. He was boxing really well. He seemed to be a class above Butcher, really. I think most people thought that going in. I certainly thought that. Barry Jones, he actually made a comment saying that he didn't think it was going to go all Charlie Edwards' way on last week's podcast, and he was wrong there, because it did go all Charlie Edwards' way. Butcher actually weighed in over the championship limit as well, so the title wasn't on the line for him. It was only up for grabs for Charlie, and Charlie did it. So Good win for him. I'm pleased for him. He moves to double figure wins now, 10 wins, and of course the 1 loss at world level, we should remember. Ian Butcher, 16-3, but a valiant effort from him. Moving up the undercard now, again, Scotty Cardle. He was in there against Robbie Barrett. Robbie Barrett, a huge underdog. Scotty Cardle 21-0 with the 1 draw, undefeated. Robbie Barrett 14-2 with 1 draw. It was the third defence, well I should say the fourth defence, because Scott Cardle won the British title, defended it twice, got a draw, so he needed to defend it that last time, the third time. Once he did that, he would win the belt outright. This was his fourth and final defence, I should say, and he put his opponent down in round 2. And he also put his opponent down again in the fight. I can't remember which round it was. And it ended up being a majority decision win for Robbie Barrett. A real upset there. He definitely deserved it. He won pretty much. For me, he won pretty much every round apart from the 2 rounds he was knocked down in. And those 2 knockdowns, especially the first one, he seemed to get hit with a shot. Fair enough. But he was off balance and Cardle's foot was behind his foot, so he kind of went backwards and tripped over his foot. So it wasn't really, I suppose a punch did land. It was hard for the referee to determine that in a split second, but the knockdowns were not, he wasn't hurt in those knockdowns at all. He did seem to gas a little bit as well, by the way, Robbie Barrett, by the latter rounds, whereas Cardle's got a good gas tank. Cardle was cut and everything. We've seen that before. Cardle's a warrior, but it was not meant to be. And a lot of people, unfortunately, are very happy because a lot of people criticise Scotty Cardle's opponents. He hasn't really had the best opponents when defending his title. Luke Campbell's been kept completely the other side of the room to Scott Cardle in the whole time. Luke Campbell's been a pro, and we do want to see boxers coming through winning these proper titles, going the traditional route, maybe getting the English, the British, moving on to European, then world, and we expect those kind of things from Luke Campbell, but he's surpassed that and gone on to the WBC internationals and stuff like that, and the WBC silvers, which it's all good and well, but for me, I'm not a huge fan of it. I do like seeing people move quickly, but I also do like the traditional way. I suppose you can't get both all the time. But that's it for the undercard. Moving over now to the main event. Ricky Burns 41-5 with 1 draw going into this fight. Julius Indongo 21-0 with 12 knockouts. We didn't know too much about Indongo. He was the IBF World Super Lightweight Champion, obviously the IBO Super Lightweight Champion as well, and Ricky Burns was putting his WBA World Super Lightweight title on the line as well. It was a unification fight. Wow. Firstly, Ayaz, I want to come to you on this fight. We didn't know too much about Indongo. As I just said there, we knew that Ricky Burns, well, in my opinion, and I said it on last week's show, I said if Indongo or any other top contender, a legitimate top guy at 140, if they were legitimate, they would beat Ricky Burns. I think Ricky Burns is over the hill. He's a lovely, lovely guy. I don't think I said that on last week's show. I really, truly want him to do the best. But I did say if Indongo is the real deal, he's going to win this fight. And he turned out to be the real deal. Many thought he was very tricky. We know that Ricky doesn't get on too well with southpaws. We saw that against Crawford. He just couldn't work out Indongo, in my opinion, here. And Indongo comes and does the job. I don't know if I made it official. I wish that we did do the predictions now, Ayaz, because I would have said points win for Indongo. He only had 12 knockouts, even though he was coming off of a real brilliant knockout in the first round against Troyanovsky. He's not really a banger on paper, and Ricky Burns had never been stopped either, and he still hasn't been stopped. So I would have gone with points, and you probably would have gone with Ricky Burns. But yeah, we didn't predict we didn't do the prediction league. You wasn't on last week's show. But yeah, what did you think of the fight in total as Ricky Burns against Julius Indongo?
I think Indongo performed very, very well. Ricky did okay here, but the thing is, Indongo was class on the night. He's throwing his jab. Obviously, Ricky couldn't really land much. That's why Indongo was like on top of him all the time. That's how Indongo won the fight.
Yeah, I think Indongo, it seemed, I think there might have been a chance that he was going to tire down the stretch. Indongo, we don't know too much about his engine, his gas tank, anything like that. We do know that Ricky is fit as a fiddle. We know that he does not gas at all. He's completely full of energy. And unfortunately for him, he was, trying his best, but he just, Indongo just didn't run out of steam, and we expected him to, but it didn't quite happen. So a brilliant win there for Indongo, and he goes back to Namibia with the IBF, the IBO, and the WBA World Super Lightweight titles. So he really announced himself on the big scene there, and now he's, him and Terence Crawford really the two main men in the division in terms of titles. So a great win for him. Personally, I think, Ayaz, and I'm going to say this now, I think that, remember, we were hearing a lot about the Ricky Burns and Anthony Crolla fight. I wouldn't be surprised now if Anthony Crolla moved up to 140 and took on Indongo, and we see him back over here. He's cheap, and we know that he would come over here for some more money. So I believe we probably won't. That won't be the last of him on British soil, in my honest opinion. But that's it for Scotland. Moving over now to a bill that happened over in the Mohegan Sun Casino. I'm probably saying that wrong. That one was in Connecticut, USA. Sullivan Barrera moved to 19 wins inside 20 professional fights with a TKO in round 5. It was only scheduled for 10. His opponent, Paul Parker, was knocked out. So Paul Parker's record now 8-2. As I said, Sullivan Barrera 19-1. Also on that bill, heavyweight prospect Cassius Chaney moved to double figures. His record now 10-0, a perfect record there with a unanimous win over 6 rounds against Juan Good, who now has a record of 8-5. So a good win there for Cassius Chaney. And that's really it for the reviewing. There wasn't too much action on last week. Just before we end part 1, as always, it's the same every week. There's one last thing to do before we end part 1, and that, of course, is to welcome guest number 1. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the former 2-time Cruiserweight World Champion, Steve USS Cunningham. Steve, welcome to the show.
Hey, man, what's up?
Hey, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure to have you on. Now, Steve, you fought last month against Felipe Romero in a 6-rounder at Cruiserweight, obviously. You won every round of the fight on all judges' scorecards, got the unanimous decision win. How did it feel in there, Steve?
We won, it felt good, man. I've been out since my fight with Glavatsky last April, so it was about 11 months. So we just wanted to get in there, get some rounds in. The fight was scheduled for, I think, 8, but it got, due to television, they got 2 rounds got taken off, so they turned to a 6-rounder. I didn't mind. I just wanted to get in there and knock the rust off and move on to the next.
And obviously you were at heavyweight for 3 years from 2012 to 2015. Now you're back at Cruiserweight. That was a little bit surprising to me. What was the reason of to move down, Steve?
Well, you guys have been following my my career, my heavyweight part of the career, and you see the decisions that I wasn't getting. The Adamic fight, my rematch with Adamic, I clearly beat him. The judges didn't give me that fight. The Tyson Fury fight, went down the way it went. I was winning, and he was allowed to, do what he did. He did what he had to do. You're going to do what you're going to do unless they stop you. And so, his size, he was able to, overwhelm me with his size, and that happened. Then you have the Glasgow fight, on HBO. And that was the one that kind of really start making us look at, these guys don't consider us a heavyweight, the business or whoever, the powers that be, because they're not giving us anything. Even these fights that I win, the Glasgow fight was a hands-down win. Adamic was a hands-down win. Fury, you can argue. The Fury fight was what it was. Fury did what he had to do to win. Hats off to him. He won. He beat me. But we thought, some things could have been done to offset that. But so then I fight Antonio Tarver, and here it is. This guy is, he just looks like crap. He looks out of shape. He, you know what I mean? And I outland him. I outpower punch him. I literally beat him also, and they call it a draw. And that's when, we just made the decision to go, hey, man, maybe we need to go back down to cruiserweight. I mean, now with Al Heyman, he's got the cruiserweights fighting in America on television, and they're making decent money, here, through PBC. So we were like, hey, man, let's go ahead, man, because that was my main reason for leaving the cruiserweights originally. I didn't want to have to go to Europe all the time for every fight, and it was just, that was my main reason.
No, that makes a lot of sense. It's funny you mentioned Glazkov there. He's had, he's been lucky with some of his decisions. I remember when he fought Malik Scott, that was, I just don't know how that fight outcome came about. And then he got landed with some bad luck when he took on Charles Martin that night. But yeah, it is what it is. So, Steve, what's next for you? Do you know when you're next out, when you're next fighting at all?
Well, we're working on that now. We're looking at one of these champions. We've got some good champions out here, man. You've got Gassiev, you've got Bradis, you've got
Usyk. You
got Shumanev, who's got a piece of the WBA, and we've got Usyk. So I fare good against all of them. The champion in me, man. I'm a two-time world champion, and what excites me is the challenge. So, I see a young guy like Usyk, young, undefeated. That's a challenge for me. I would really thrive and get up for that fight. All of these guys, all these champions. So, the cruiserweight division is very lively, it's good. And, then you have Tony Bellew. I guess, he got rid of his WBC, or I don't know, did Huck and Bradis fight for that?
Yeah, it got, he got stripped of that, yeah. I think he's been made Emeritus champion. I think he can come back and fight for it straight away, sort of thing. But I don't think he's going to be a cruiserweight, to be honest, anymore.
He did a great job beating David Haye, and he made a lot of money, man. You're not going to make that kind of money in cruiserweight division right now. So it wouldn't be a financially smart move for him to come back to cruiserweight. So. But the cruiserweight division is live, man. It's beautiful, and my thing is, I believe I can be three-time world champion. I want to prove it to myself. You know what I mean? I want to go out and do it. So that's why I'm here. That's why I'm still here.
Yeah, it's interesting you said that. I agree with what you said about Bellew there, and the cruiserweight division is hotting up. You're still pretty much the undisputed number one American at cruiserweight, that's for sure. You named a few guys there, Steve. You named a few guys. You named the champions there, about 4 or 5 names. Have you got anyone in particular out of those guys that you target as the man you'd like to fight most?
They told, I guess they have Usyk as the number one cruiserweight. From what I've been hearing, I haven't looked at BoxRec or none of the rankings, but the way HBO talked about him a couple weeks ago, it's like, hey, Usyk is this, he's that, he's this, he's that, and you see he's pretty damn good. So, he's top of the list. Bebu's top of the list. It doesn't matter. You listen, you guys know me. I'll fight whomever, whenever, and we'd be ready to roll.
And obviously, you've been a pro now for 16 years. You said just there you want to prove to yourself that you can become a 3-time world champion at cruiserweight. Is that the sole thing that drives you and motivates you forward at this point in your career, Steve?
Not the sole thing, but it's one of the driving forces. I love what I do. I really like boxing. I really love it. I really, I just love the challenge, and I love staying in shape. I'm 40 years old and I feel great. I look great and I perform at a high level, at a championship level. So I'm just that drives me. Just having something to do drives me. But being world champion, 3-time world champion now is such a driving force now that it really motivates me.
Yeah, no, that's fair to say. And it's going to be 4 years in a couple of days since you fought Tyson Fury. You mentioned that fight just briefly there. What do you remember of that fight, Steve? It was definitely a fight where I thought you was ahead. And then, as you say, Fury did what he had to do. But it was a very entertaining fight while it lasted, that's for sure.
Yeah, I remember. There's just a lot of things going on. At that time, at the time of a fight, there's a lot of emotion going on. I guess for me, I can speak for myself only, but a lot of other fighters do attest to this too. there's a lot of emotion, and I just didn't feel, and that was coming off of the Atomic robbery, So going into that Tyson Fury fight, I felt that I had to fight more. I felt that I had to go in there and bang, with this guy to show the people that I'm a heavyweight, and that's kind of what allowed Fury to get at me, because I stayed in the pocket more. I even was tangled up with him some, and just allow him to lean on me. I should have used my legs more, but going into that fight, man, it's like, wow, I'm fighting this huge guy, but it's like, all right, size means nothing, so we're just gonna go do what we got to do. And I remember after the knockdown, I hit him with a few more good, clean shots that wobbled him, and one he kind of fell on me and leaned on me, and but then he started just keeping his hands high and walking down, walking, laying on me. Good tactic on his part, But I remember right there, I did get a little winded, but I know I get a second and third win in the fight. So that round where he got the KO, I was thinking before that, like, all right, this is my round. I'm going to take this round off to an extent, but I know I'm going to have my second, third win coming up. But that was 7th round coming, so I knew I was going to be okay. But, he did what he had to do and, pinned me there and got me out of there. So that was it was a big disappointment for me, though, because I felt I needed that. I needed that win big time just to kind of solidify me as a heavyweight.
And I do want to ask you, Steve, obviously after that, it ended the way it did, a little bit controversially. You agreed to help him with sparring in the lead up to the Fury vs. Hay fight, which, quite surprisingly, after a little bit of bad blood between you both in and around your fight, surprised a lot of people. What were your reasons for going to his training camp, and are you both cool now?
Yeah, we're cool now, man. I mean, I'm not, I really got a chance to mingle with him, Hilgi, and Peter. Peter was the one who really stood out to me. He's a real stand-up guy, man. I really liked dealing with Peter. There was no funny business. It was all business, and they told me what they wanted from me, why they wanted me there. My wife struck a pretty hard bargain. They met the they met her demands, and we got there. I'm not one of them guys to carry a grudge unless you've really done something, And after the fight, Brother Nazim, my trainer, he said about Fury. He said, man, listen, if I was Fury, I'd have did the same thing. Because he's like, there's no way Fury was going to outbox you. There was no way Fury was going to beat you at a boxing match. But at a who's the bigger guy match, Fury wins hands down. So my fault in that fight was I allowed him to be the bigger guy, without staying mobile all the time. But so once we got to the camp, I didn't know what to expect. I'm thinking, hey, maybe they're trying to get me in the camp to knock me out and then, post it on YouTube. But then come to find out, they were a little concerned with me, like, is he here to knock Fury out, or try to knock him out, try to hit him again with that overhand, and but we all came to, I guess by the second week, it was mad comfortable, man. We were all laughing, joking, giggling. We went to Amsterdam together, and just as a team. I was part of the team. I've been in numerous training camps, Vladimir. I mean, you name them, Oliver McCall, Larry Donalds. I mean, tons of training camps, and I'm a team player. I know why I'm there. Even as a world champion, I've sparred with Chris Bird numerous times, and I'm there to help this guy get ready for a fight. You know what I mean? So that same thing with Fury. I wanted to see that fight badly, though, him and Hayes. That would have been an entertaining fight either way. But sad that it didn't go down.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear you talk about the camp life there and all the names that you've sparred. I do want to ask you about that next. As you say, you mentioned a few guys there. You've sparred some top fighters over the years. Have you got any crazy names? I know you've thrown out a few there, but have you got any just strange ones that was quite unbelievable that actually came to fruition?
I got a chance to spar with Keith Holmes for the Bernard Hopkins fight. Remember when they had that middleweight tournament going on with Trinidad, Joppy, Holmes, and Bernard. So I got the opportunity to go spar with Keith Holmes for his fight against Bernard Hopkins. That was epic for me. And that was when I had like 2 or 3 professional fights. I got a chance to spar with Fernando Vargas when he was an amateur. Oh, no, when I was an amateur, I was a young amateur, like 11 fights. And he was about, I think, 8-0 as a professional. Of course, he tore me up. I learned a lot out of that sparring. Got a chance to spar with Oliver McCall. That was awesome. He's very strong. Oh, man, Larry Donalds. I mean,
I think Oliver McCall's got one of the best chins ever, in my opinion.
Yeah, man. He's just a strong, hardcore guy. He keeps coming forward. Chance to spar with Chris Johnson, man. Cedric Boswell. I mean, goodness, man. You name it. I've sparred with these guys. Vladimir. That Vladimir sparring is the reason I went heavyweight. You know, I felt that, you know, I did pretty damn good in there with the best heavyweight in the world. So I was like, man, let me go ahead and, you know, tip my hat into this heavyweight pot and see what we can do, you know. But yeah, man, I've been all over the place sparring with guys. I mean, really, that's how I used to make money, you know, because I was signed with Don King for 8 years. So, you know, when you're signed with Don King, you're fighting twice a year, once a year. I fought once a year, and it wasn't a lot of money. So I would go to training camps. I've been at least 4 training camps with Chris Bird. You know, me and him are like brothers now. You know, just sparring with all kind of people, man. That's the way, you know, you make money at what you're going to already be doing throughout the week training, and then you get this experience, you know, so which helped me elevate my fighting ability. You know, every time I like to spar with guys that are better than me, you know?
Yeah, it's like an apprenticeship, basically, when you think about it.
You're
learning on the job. He's definitely something. Now, I want to ask you about 2 fights that have happened just recently in the Cruiserweight division. If you haven't seen the fight, Steve, you don't have to answer the question. But I wanted to ask you about the recent Usyk and Michael Hunter fight. Did you happen to see that one at all?
Yes, I watched that. You know, Mike Hunter did a real good job. He did a damn good job. He did better than a lot of people thought he would, especially with I think he had almost a year layoff.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
When you have a year layoff and you throw a guy in there with a champion, he's not going to be that, you know, comfortable. And you can see Mike wasn't 100% at the time, but what he was doing was effective, you know, and it kind of, you know, he touched Usyk here and there when he won it and showed me a couple of things. So, but it was a good fight, good performance on Usyk's part. He turned it up, you know, and overwhelmed Hunter. So, and literally almost got him out of there. So almost stopped him, but Hunter weathered the storm, and that was, you know, hats off to him. Good job on both parts.
Yeah, it was hard because we had Hunter on the show the week of that fight, so you know we wished him all the best. And yeah, I think he did brilliant in the first part of the fight, especially. And I think he announced himself on the world stage. Really, him and you, I think that would be a brilliant fight, especially an all-American clash at cruiserweight there. Yeah,
Mike's. I know Mike from the. I met Mike years ago at the. I think it was the David Haye camp. Yep, it was the David Haye camp. You know, he was there sparring with Vladimir. And, you know, we met each other. Pretty cool young guy, man, up and coming. He's got that fighter bloodline in him, you know, kind of like my son does. So, yeah, man, you know, it's true. I wouldn't want to fight you know, he's a close, you know, he's a friend. But, you know, money speaks, money talks, and this is a business. And if that happens, that'd be, you know, we had to do it. But, you know, good stuff, man. Good matchups. The friends, you know, when guys know each other, they make the better matchups in boxing. If you ever watch the fights where guys know each other or they're friends, those are some of the best fights.
Yeah. Sometimes that is the case. It wasn't really the case against Deontay Wilder and Malik Scott. That one, I didn't really like seeing one, to be honest. But I'm
not going to speak too much on that. There's a lot of speculation about that, but hey, man.
Another fight, Steve, I want to ask you about if you did happen to see it. You mentioned it as well. Maris Bridis against Marco Huck. Did you manage to see that fight at all?
Yeah, I saw a majority of that fight. It was a good performance on Brady's part. I mean, the thing is, Marco Huck could only do so many things. I mean, not can only do. He only does so many things. You know, Marco Huck doesn't utilize the jab. He doesn't utilize lateral movement. He just utilizes go and oomph, and he throws big shots and he tries to get you out of there. The crowd loves it when it happens and it works. But you know, that's all he's been doing all his career, and that's one thing we noticed when I fought him in 2007. You know, that this guy's he's a brawler. So all you have to do is box this guy. Brady's kind of out-brawled him and boxed him. You know, Brady's, you know, and he's strong. You know, strong too. So you know, all of that affected Huck, man. It was a good win, very good win for Brady.
Yeah, I absolutely have to agree. And coming down to the last couple questions now, or the last proper question anyway, Steve. A big matchup happening in just a few days' time now. Joshua against Vladimir Klitschko. How do you see that big clash unfolding?
Oh man, you know, with Vladimir's last performance, you know, against Fury, you know, you don't know what you're going to get, you know, because there's two things to this. If we get to Vladimir that fought Fury, of course Joshua stops him. You know, Joshua's an exceptional athlete, you know, very good, young, still hungry as a champion, strong, athletic. You know, he's the full package, I believe, you know. So, but fighting a guy like Vladimir, who has been the king for so long, you can't help but think, like, maybe this is going to bring the best out of him. You know, maybe Fury just got into his head, you know, and as we know, Vladimir, you know, you can get into Vladimir's head a bit, and with Emmanuel Stewart not really being there, you know, pulling that monster out of Vladimir, as we've seen in a few fights that needs to be done, you know, Vladimir just he stayed in that one stagnant lane until literally the 12th round is around when he turned it up, but it was too late. But then you also got to realize Vladimir, when he goes up against guys that he sparred, he's more confident and he does more things. So he sparred Joshua before, so he feels he can get Joshua. So he might go for it. So I don't know, man. I can't call this fight, man. I'm just gonna sit back and watch and enjoy the show, enjoy the fireworks.
Yeah, it definitely is a fight that everybody's looking forward to in every part of the world, to be completely honest. And the final question for you now, Steve, this is a question that I ask to everybody, to be honest, that we speak to from overseas, whether it's the USA, anywhere else. I want to ask you now, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here. Who would you say is your favourite UK fighter? It can be past, it can be present, from any era. Who's your favourite fighter from the UK, Steve?
Oh, man, past Johnny Nelson, man.
Really?
Yeah, man. I used to, you know, when he was the WBO Cruiserweight champion. That's right. You know, I just used to watch him, and I think I just came on the scene, like just got into the rankings, or, you know, really just broke into the world rankings, and I was like, oh, man, you know, just looking at, you know, the guys I would probably have to fight if I was up at that level, and Johnny Nelson stood out, and especially at his age. He was still, you know, defending his title and winning. I just really, you know, that stood out with me, man. And his athleticism, his build, and, you know, I just watched him like, wow, man, this dude's pretty decent. But I mean, listen, the UK, you guys got some awesome dudes. I mean, you know, all the cruiserweights from the UK I watched. Enzo, Carl Thompson. Oh man. But you guys got some serious fighters. Just all across the board. Kell Brook is a favorite I like to watch. The dude is pretty exceptional. But Johnny Nelson is the one that stands out to me, you know, on the top.
Hey, that's fair enough. It's the first time we've had Johnny Nelson nominated on that question, but I'll take it. Right, Steve, listen, it's been a real pleasure having you on the show. I want to thank you for giving us a piece of your time. I wish you all the best in your goal to become a 3-time world champion, and no doubt we'll catch up again soon.
Yes, sir. Take it easy.
Okay, now it's time for part 2 on this week's show. This part, the famous preview part. Just before we get into the previewing, though, we're going to go over to Ayaz with the hottest news of the boxing world this week.
Eleider Alvarez will defend his WBC boxing silver light heavyweight title against Jean Pascal on June the 3rd at Bell Centre in Montreal, Canada.
Yes, Alida Alvarez is a guy who's in the mandatory position, if I'm not mistaken, to take on Adonis Stevenson. Now, Adonis Stevenson paid him some step-aside money to take on a guy who we're going to be talking about in a moment, Ayaz. I know you've got that on a piece of news, so we're going to talk about that in a moment. But basically, Alida Alvarez is a real good prospect, and you know he's been campaigning in Canada, and obviously Jean Pascal also campaigns in Canada, so that is a good fight in my honest opinion. I don't think that Pascal's as good as what he was a couple of years back, but for me, that's a brilliant fight. I really like that fight. That's really all I'm going to say on that one. But yeah, that's a great fight. What date was that, Ayaz, again?
June the 3rd.
June the 3rd, yeah. Definitely one I'm going to be putting in my diary.
Adonis Stevenson will defend his WBC light heavyweight title in a rematch against Andres Fonfara on June the 3rd at Bell Centre in Montreal.
Okay, so it's going to be on the same bill. Okay, so yeah, as I just said there, Adonis Stevenson's paid Alida Alvarez some step-aside money so that he could face, originally, he was going to be taking on Sean Monaghan, or Monahan, or whatever his name is. He was going to be taking on him. For whatever reason, that fight's now fallen through, so it's a rematch with Fonfara. Fonfara did well against Stevenson, but he lost, and I can't see really any other conclusion to the fight. Fonfara had a little bit of momentum, he had a couple of fights, and then he got flattened by Joe Smith Jr. and he actually got a decent win just recently over Chad Dawson, so that's probably the fight or the win that has set this clash up. But Chad Dawson was winning the fight against Fonfara. All he had to do was stay on his feet, and he got knocked out in the final few seconds of the last round, so it wasn't a good win or anything there from Fonfara. It just went to show really that he had, you know, the better engine of out of himself and an aging Chad Dawson. So yeah, decent win there nonetheless for Fonfara. But this fight against Adonis Stevenson really is not one I'm really excited about at all. I will watch it, of course, but I'm not overly excited for that one. But a decent night of boxing it's going to be there at the Bell Centre.
Luis Ortiz has suffered a thumb injury and has withdrawn from Derek Rossi showdown on the Porter undercard.
Yes, right. He was going to be on the Porter and Berto undercard, but you know, that was obviously scheduled for this Saturday. But he's pulled out of that fight with Derek Rossi. To be honest, I don't think Derek Rossi really had a chance anyway. Hopefully that fight doesn't get rescheduled. Hopefully we see Luis Ortiz in something bigger, but we do want to see him more active. So I was excited on that point. But unfortunately, he's picked up an injury and it's not going to be happening. But we will be looking out for what's next with that big man, because he's a good big man.
Anthony Joshua vs Vladimir Klitschko will be televised live in the United States by Showtime, while HBO will broadcast the fight on delay.
Yeah, it's pretty rare to see both broadcasters there, both showing the same fight, if I'm not mistaken. So just goes to show how big this fight is, even in the USA. You know, even in the USA, two fighters from completely different parts of the world, obviously Ukraine and United Kingdom, European countries, to both make a fight in the heavyweight division that's that big, that both the biggest broadcasters for boxing in the US both want a piece of it. So it's great to see that happen, to be completely honest. It's great for the sport of boxing.
Yep, and that's it for the news.
Okay, thank you, Ayaz. Moving over now to the famous preview part. We're going to start over in Australia at the Melbourne Pavilion. One fight to mention over there, former world champion Sam Solomon. He's in his 59th professional fight. He takes on Balas Horvath, who has a record of 29-21. Sam Solomon obviously 44-14. It's a 10-rounder there at middleweight. That's it for Australia. Moving over now to Finland. Johan Duapas, his record at the moment 34-4. He's in an 8-rounder at heavyweight against David Gogoshvili, who has a record of 17-4. Just thought we'd mention that one anyway. Big fight over in Germany, actually. This one's a good one. I'm really looking forward to this. Robin Krasnicki his record 46-4 in his 51st professional fight against Arthur Abraham, who's also having his 51st fight as well. Arthur Abraham's record 45-5. It's a 12-rounder at super middleweight. I actually really like that fight. If I'm going to pick that fight, I'm going to go with Arthur Abraham. I think Krasniqi, when he's really stepped it up, I think he's come up short. I won't forget the beating he got given by Nathan Cleverly that night in the UK. And to be honest, I think that Arthur Abraham, despite that one bad performance against Gilberto Ramirez, who's probably the best at 168, he hasn't really had any off nights since then. He's obviously past his best, but he still manages to scrape out some good wins when he needs to. So I think Arthur Abraham in that one, but a great fight there for Germany. Moving over now to Poland, one fight to mention on this bill. Former world heavyweight challenger Michael Grant, 48-6. He hasn't fought since 2014 in October, so it's been like 2.5 years. He hasn't won since 2011 when he knocked out Franz Bofa in the final round, who was really old as well. So, he shouldn't be nowhere near a ring, to be honest. But he's taken on Krzysztof Zimnoch, who has a record of 21-1 with one draw. He's an 8-rounder at heavyweight, and unfortunately, Michael Grant is going to probably pick up another loss, but I don't even know why he's in this fight at all. That one's over in Poland at the Arena Hall. That's it for Poland. Moving over now to Sweden. One fight to mention over here. Heavyweight contender Otto Wallin, 17-0. He fights for the vacant WBA Continental Heavyweight title against Gianluca Mandras, who has a record of 12-4. Otto Wallin, a decent looking fighter. He's another prospect from Sweden. But we do need to see him stepping it up pretty soon. That's it for Sweden. Moving over now to the UK. There's two bills to mention this week over here. We're going to start with the one happening in the Leicester Arena, Leicester, United Kingdom. Top of the bill, Tyrone Nurse, 34-2 with one draw. He takes on Joe Hughes, 15-2. This one, of course, is for Tyrone Nurse's British super lightweight title. He's in the same situation that Scott Cardle was in last week. This is his third defence. So if he wins this fight, he gets to keep the belt outright. Tyrone Nurse is a man, for me, who's really talented, very, very hard to beat, but he's hung around the domestic scene for a little bit too long for my liking, so I want to see him win this fight. He's now with Frank Warren. It's his first fight with Frank Warren. This is his chance to win, the British outright on a big stage with BT Sports involved as well. And hopefully after this fight, we see him pushed on to European level as soon as possible. Also on this bill, Zolani Tete, 24-3. He takes on Arthur Villanueva, who has a record of 30-1. That fight was supposed to happen on last week's bill, but it was moved from that Manchester show to this week because that show was a little bit too overcrowded. Hopefully that fight happens though. That's a 12-rounder at bantamweight. Last week's guest, Tommy Langford, his record 18-0. He takes on Avtandil Kurtzidze, 32-2 with two draws. That is going to be fight of the night. That one's for the interim WBO world middleweight title, so I'm really looking forward to that one. Another great fight on this bill, actually, a little bit of a trade fight. Jermaine Smile, 14-4 with two draws. He takes on prospect Darryl Williams, 14-0. Darryl Williams is a good fighter. I've seen him fight a couple of times now. It's a 10-rounder, that one, at super middleweight. It's also for the English super middleweight title, so a good strap on the line there for Darryl Williams. Hopefully he does the business. He's the man on the up. Also, heavyweight Oleksandr Usykov's on this bill as well. His opponent yet to be announced. His record 33-1 at the moment. Also on this bill, Anthony Yard, his record 9-0. His opponent yet to be announced. He's always very exciting. His fights don't usually go too long. It's an 8-rounder at light heavyweight, that one. Tom Stalker, his record 11-2 with 3 draws. Hasn't really caught light as a pro, unfortunately, but he's in a 6-rounder at lightweight against Chris Adaway. Chris Adaway 6-26 with 4 draws. A bit of a strange one there, but all the best to Tom Stalker. And also the final fight to mention on that bill, Daniel Dubois. He gets out again, hopefully a little bit longer than his last fight that only went 1 round. He's in a 4-rounder at heavyweight against Blaise Menduo, who has a record of 3-1. Daniel Dubois, of course, with a perfect debut the other week. move to 1-0. That's it for that one. Moving over now to the other British bill. This one happening in the Echo Arena. Top of the bill, Martin Murray, 34-4. He takes on Gabriel Rosado. Martin Murray's also got a draw, I forgot to mention there. Gabriel Rosado, 23-10. This one's a 12-rounder at middleweight. Ayaz, what do you think about this fight? What's your thoughts on the Martin Murray and Gabriel Rosado fight, if you've got any?
Oh, this is going to be a war. I tell you that. This is actually going to be a really war. Both tough fighters. Both been in with Golovkin. Both been knocked out by Golovkin. Both have failed to win a world title. This is going to be a grueling tear-up. And to be honest, I'm sitting in the middle, like who's going to win this fight. So 1 minute I'm choosing Rosado, 1 minute I'm choosing Murray, 1 minute I'm choosing Rosado, 1 minute I'm choosing Murray. In my opinion, obviously, because it's in the UK, I'm going to go with Martin Murray points win.
Yeah, I can't see any of the guys being knocked out, despite, as you mentioned, Gennady Golovkin going through both of them like a hot knife through butter. Though not so much in Martin Murray's case. He did take him about 11 rounds, which was quite impressive now. It's one of those fights. It's not a brilliant fight, but it should be a war. But they're both a little bit negative, so, I'm not overly looking forward to this one. So you've gone Martin Murray on points, Ayaz. We're going to try our best to do as many predictions this week as we can. I'm going to agree with you on that one though. So I'm not going to go against you there. There's nothing really to pick on the other bill. So we'll move down the undercard. Rocky Fielding takes on John Ryder. John Ryder was on our show last week as well. John Ryder 24-3. This one's for the vacant British super middleweight title. Rocky Fielding 23-1. Obviously a 12-rounder. As I said, John Ryder's moving up in weight, or he's moved up in weight. He's had the one fight there. It was against Adam Etches, who was also moving up in weight. He looked $1 million. He did a job on Adam Etches in truth. But Rocky Fielding's a man who's a natural 168. He can bang at that weight. He's good at that weight. He's only had the one off night where he lost to Callum Smith. And apart from that, he's looked pretty solid. So it's a tough test for John Ryder. But he does like tough tests. And I think he needs big fights to get up for. So it's an intriguing one. Ayaz, if you've got any thoughts on that fight, you can, of course, tell us them. But have you got a pick for that fight at all? John Ryder and Rocky Fielding?
I'm going to go with a Rocky Fielding points win.
Yeah, it's a tough ask for John Ryder. He always puts himself in these fights, as I say. But, being a friend of the show, we want him to win. We wish him all the very best. But, if I had to pick it, it's so hard to say. I think Rocky Fielding probably may even get him out of there. I really hope I'm wrong. I truly do. We don't like to be biased, but I'm being biased. I want Rocky Fielding to lose. I want John Ryder to be the victor, but it is a tough ask. As I say, he's only had the one fight at super middle. I think I'm going to go with Rocky Fielding to win by a knockout inside the distance, but I so hope that I'm wrong. I hope that we're both wrong. I hope that Rocky Fielding loses. I hope that John Ryder does get the job done, but I will go with Rocky by knockout. At the moment, it's 4-3 on the prediction league. As we said, you got a step closer when it was 4-2 by picking Lomachenko to win by knockout over Jason Sosa. I had him to win on points, so it is very close. There's just one fight in it. Moving down that undercard, Sean Dodd 12-2 with one draw. Sean Masher Dodd, of course, he takes on Lee Appleyard 10-2. This one's for the vacant Commonwealth lightweight title. We wish Sean Masher Dodd all the very best. He's been a bit unlucky, to be honest, in a couple of his fights, so we hope he doesn't have the luck against him in this one. Joe Cordina making his debut. That's going to be a good thing to see. He, of course, is another Olympian that Eddie Hearns signed and inked on the dotted line. So Joe Cordina, we know he's gonna, he's one of them guys. He's almost definitely going to be a star as long as he stays focused, stays dedicated and stays grounded. So it's going to be interesting to see what he's got on his debut. And that's it for the 2 UK bills. Moving over now to, well, in fairness, this one's also in the UK. This one in Northern Ireland. One fight to mention over there on this bill. This one's at the Devonish Complex in Belfast. Mike Perez, the heavyweight Cuban, he's been off the scene for quite a while since he got stopped by Alexander Povetkin in the first round, I believe it was. And that was a couple years ago now. So Mikey Perez gets out again. His record at the moment, 21-2 with 1 draw. It's going to be interesting to see what he's got left. He definitely needs to dedicate himself to the sport if he's going to get anywhere, if that's even possible. I think time is definitely against him at the moment. Another bill to mention, again, this one's in the UK. My apologies saying there was only 2 bills. Big sexy Sean Turner, he's in his 11th contest. He's got a perfect record at the moment, of course, 10-0. He takes on Kamil Sokolowski, who has a record of 3-9 with 2 draws. Moving over now to the final 2 bills. I believe it's the final 2 bills of this weekend. This one's a great bill. This one is the best bill of the weekend. I'm not sure if anybody's picked it up. I think maybe Box Nation might have picked it up, in truth. Top of the bill, Oscar Valdez, 21-0. He takes on Miguel Mariaga, who's a real banger, 25-2. That's a great fight for Oscar Valdez's WBO World Featherweight title. I'm really looking forward to that one. Jesse Magdaleno defending his WBO World Super Bantamweight title, the title he won from Nonito Donaire. His record 24-0. He takes on Adilson Dos Santos, who has a record of 18-2. We've seen Adilson Dos Santos come over to the UK and take on Kid Galahad. I think it was maybe his last fight before his drug ban, and he got outpointed by Kid Galahad pretty conclusively, so it's going to be interesting, that one. But I think Jesse Magdaleno will do a job on him. And finally on this bill, it's a great bill, as I did say, Gilberto Ramirez, we talked about him earlier. He's in his 35th pro contest. His record at the moment, a perfect one, 34-0. He takes on Max Bursak, 33-4 with 1 draw. Gilberto Ramirez puts his WBO World Super Middleweight title on the line as well. A lot of people, including Joe Gallagher, believe that Gilberto Ramirez is the main man at 168. Max Bursak, we was going to see him in there against Billy Joe Saunders at some point last year, but due to a few injuries that didn't come off. And of course he gets a big shot here at Gilberto Ramirez, but I believe he will get the job done. And another fight to mention on this bill, the pro debut of Shakur Stevenson. He's in a 6-rounder at featherweight. He takes on a man called Edgar Brito, who has a record of 3-2 with 1 draw. Shakur Stevenson obviously signed, if I'm not mistaken, by Andre Ward, and he's a real talent, Shakur Stevenson. So it's going to be a pleasure watching his pro career unfold. Final bill of this weekend, over at the Barclays Center, Brooklyn. There's a lot of boxing on this weekend. This one, of course, in New York, USA. We're going to talk about the 3 undercard bouts. We've got the 2 undercard bouts, then the main event. 2 undercard bouts, both for world titles, but the main event is a non-title bout. We're going to start with the first undercard fight. Amanda Serrano, 31-1. She takes on Dahania Santana, who has a record of 35-8. That should be a good fight, looking at the 2 records on paper. It's for the vacant WBO World Female Bantamweight title, so all the very best to both ladies in that one. Jamel Charlo, the remaining Charlo at 154, he takes on Charles Hatley. Charles Hatley 26-1 with 1 draw. Jamel Charlo 28-0. He puts his WBC World Super Welterweight title on the line against Charles Hatley. As I said, that should be a real good fight. I know Charles Hatley was furious at both of the Charlo brothers. He really wanted a shot. I think, to be honest, he's probably in too deep a little bit. Jamel Charlo seems to be pretty special, although Jamal Charlo seems to be very special. Despite moving up to 160, I believe he's going to be a force at 160 because he's seriously full of talent. And the main event, Ayaz, I'm going to go to you for the predictions on this one as well. Firstly, your thoughts on this fight before we talk about the predictions. Sean Porter, 26-2 with 1 draw in one corner. In the other corner, Andre Berto, 31-4. 0 draws. It's a 12-rounder at welterweight. As I said, this fight doesn't need a belt. It's a good fight for the welterweight division, especially over in the USA, especially, that fringe world level, I suppose. What's your thoughts on this fight before we talk about the predictions, Ayaz? Good fight, this one, Porter and Berto.
It's a very good fight. I can tell you that for a fact. they're both ex-world champions. We haven't seen Porter for a very long time. The last time we saw him fight was when he fought Keith Thurman, and he lost to Keith Thurman. But with a win wise, I'm gonna go with Porter because I think he's very tough. He gave Kell Brook a fight. He gave Keith Thurman a tough fight. But I think Porter's gonna rough Berto up.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with every word you said there. I think that, in my honest opinion, Berto is over the hill. You know, he didn't look great against Victor Ortiz, and that was a couple years back now, and he hasn't really looked good since then. Obviously, he never had a chance against Mayweather, but he, for me, hasn't really looked too good. But it's almost been a whole year since he's been out the ring. As I say, he's over the hill. I don't think many people can keep Porter off of them. I think Kell Brook did a great job of that. But I think Berto at this age, I don't think he's got it in him to do it. Obviously, Porter coming off the loss to Keith Thurman's not ideal. Remember, he got that win over Adrian Broner as well at the back end of, or mid 2015, just looking at it. Yeah, I think Porter wins this fight. I am going to go with Porter to win this fight by knockout. So you're going points, I'm going to go knockout. So we can be separated there for the prediction league once again, 4-3 at the moment. But no, it's a good fight. It's a good fight. I think that, really and truly, Berto's not world level. I don't think he's world level. I think he loses to probably every guy in the top 15. I think he's just an old dog, really, with a name, unfortunately. And I don't want to be too harsh, he's supposed to be the nicest guy. But Sean Porter, I think he's a little bit too fresh, a little bit too big and strong at this point in Berto's career. So for me, it should be a win, a relatively easy win for Porter. If he loses a few rounds in this, I'll be quite surprised. But that's it for that one. That's it for this weekend's fights. There's one fight to mention on Tuesday of next week, but the show, again, we do the show every Thursday, so by the time Thursday comes around next week, the fight would have already happened. So we're going to talk about the fight just before we let you go. It's, of course, happening next week, so it's on Tuesday, the 25th of April. One fight to mention over in the Fitzgerald Casino and Hotel in Mississippi, USA. Really, there's a couple fights on the bill. Mario Barrios, 18-0, good prospect in the super lightweight division. He's in a 10-rounder against Nelson Lara, who has a record of 17-7 with 4 draws. That should be decent there. And also Brandon Figueroa, 11-0. His opponent yet to be announced. That one's at super bantamweight. So just 2 fights there for 2 prospects. We thought we'd throw it in there. It's happening next Tuesday. We'll talk about those results, of course, next Thursday on next week's show. But that's it for the reviewing. That's it for the previewing. We've done the news. The last thing to do before we wrap up the show, of course, is to welcome our second guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the current British light heavyweight champion, Mr. Frank Buglioni. Frank, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us, Joey. Thank you very much.
It's always a pleasure speaking to you, my man. Now, first things first, happy birthday for yesterday. Did you do anything nice, Frank?
Thank you. I've got 2 training sessions in and a bit of work with my physio, so it was a good day. It was a successful day.
Am I the first person in the out of all the interviewers that wish you happy birthday?
Yeah, but you're the second. Brooke Stratfield,
okay,
a good friend of mine. Been working at KO London magazine, so she wished me happy birthday yesterday.
All right.
She's on the book.
I'm the first man anyway, I'll take that one. Right, listen.
That's it.
We spoke last on this show just after you beat Hosea Burton. Obviously, we had a good chat actually at the Bellew and Hay weigh-in. That was the last time I saw you.
Yeah.
You were nursing an eye injury at the time. You had a cut. Is that fully healed now, I take it?
Yeah, that's completely better now, and start sparring this week. So I've done some light technical sparring. Had the all clear from the plastic surgeon. So yeah, I'm in good spirits, and I'm itching to get in there and throw some punches.
Absolutely. So, as you say, you're fighting on the 3rd of June at the O2 against Ricky Summers in what will be your first defence of the British. What do you know about your opponent, Frank? Obviously, he also has an unbeaten record, just like Hosea Burton did. I know you're definitely ready to take another row, 2 on the bounce.
Yeah, that's it. No, I mean, Ricky Summers, I've got a lot of respect for him. Anyone that comes to fight for that British title, they're going to give 100%. and they're probably going to perform to their best. I mean, I've had it with the likes of Andrew Robinson and Lee Markham, British domestic clashes, and they've performed really well. I'd say goes to much as say they've performed out of their skin. So yeah, I expect the best Ricky Summers to face me. I expect him to put every single bit of effort and knowledge into his training camp and be at 100% fitness and desire come June the 3rd. But that being said, I've got the experience on my side. I've been there, I've done it before, and I'm certainly willing to go there and do it again.
And obviously, Frank, you fought at the O2 Arena just the once, and the fight was over in the first round when you knocked your opponent out in your first European title defence. So here you are in your first British title defence. It's one of the best venues for atmosphere, in my opinion. You looking forward to fighting there again, Frank?
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic venue, probably one of the best in London, aside from maybe Wembley Stadium. I think the O2 is phenomenal. So, yeah, it's going to be a real honour to be there and be chief support, and one that I'm really looking forward to going to.
And I saw that it looked like you did a little bit of acting the other day. Is that right, Frank?
Yeah, just had my debut for my first film part, and that was in Terry Stone's Once Upon a Time in London. So it's all about the rise of the gangsters in London back in the 40s with Billy Hill and Jack the Spot. So yeah, that should be a very interesting film. I mean, it was a great day on set and meeting all the cast and crew. And I appreciate what they put into it and how they go about their work. I think there's a lot to be said for these actors at the top of their game. They really know their stuff.
Yeah, we definitely have to pay attention for when that comes out. Now, a man that you fought previously, Fedor Chudinov, today it's been announced that he's taking on George Groves. If I'm not mistaken, you've done quite a few rounds in sparring with George. That one's going to be happening on the Brook versus Spence undercard. What are your thoughts on that one, Frank? I know that you should be able to give a decent account of this fight.
Yeah, I think it's a real 50-50. I'm not sure. I don't think I got my tactics right when I fought Chudinov. I think I should have probably stuck it on him a little bit more. I know I had the hurting of it. He throws a lot of shots. He throws good combinations. He's obviously very tough, very resilient, and he's got a good boxing brain. So I think it's going to be a very good fight between him and Groves. But one that I certainly think Groves can edge it if he gets his tactics right. I think he's got to set a good pace. Set traps, be very sharp with that jab, not let Chudinov get into a rhythm, and if he hurts him, jump on him and make sure that he really hurts him. That being said, I'm hoping to do a few rounds of Groves in the lead up to both our fights, so I'll have an in-depth chat with him and try and give him some more advice.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully he does get the job done, but definitely a good fight. Now, next weekend, we're closing in on the Joshua vs. Klitschko fight. Obviously, a huge fight. Doesn't matter where you are in the world, you know it's happening. What are your thoughts on that one, Frank? Last time I'm going to probably speak to you before the fight, so just wanted to get your views on that one, really. We've been asking everybody lately.
Yeah, no, again, I think it's a very competitive fight. I think Tyson Fury got into Klitschko's head, whereas I don't think Anthony Joshua has got into his head as much. I think I'm leaning towards Anthony Joshua. I mean, he's got devastating power, and Klitschko can certainly be hurt, even though he hasn't been hurt in recent times. I think age might catch up with him and play a big part in that fight. So yeah, I'm gonna lean towards either a mid to late stoppage with Anthony Joshua or Joshua on points. I don't think it's going to be a foregone conclusion, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely an intriguing fight nonetheless. Two last questions for you now, Frank, before we let you go. When we last spoke, it was a rumoured fight, but now it's on. Chisora versus Helenius, the rematch is on. I just wanted to basically ask, how's Derek looking at the moment, obviously being a gym mate of yourself?
Yeah, he's really putting the work in. Every time I've been in the gym and he's been training before me. He's been putting his miles in on the road as well. He gets up and he does it really early in the morning. He likes the discipline of that. And he's firing on all cylinders. I think he's really got the spark back. He's been doing some great work with Don Charles, and by all accounts, he's looked good in sparring. And I think it's a fight that he knows he can win. He's done it before, so he's got a lot of confidence going into this fight. And I think he'll go and do a good job on Helenius. He'll take the victory.
Yeah, we certainly hope so. As most people know, he deserved it the first time, in all honesty. Yep. And finally, Frank, I'm going to ask you this question because realistically, when you look at your record on paper, you are quite a banger. How do you see yourself winning your fight if you've got a prediction for us against Ricky Summers, June the 3rd, O2 Arena?
I'm going out there to do a number on Ricky Summers. I won't leave a stone unturned in training camp. I was flying, getting ready for the March the 4th show before the cut happened. So I expect the training to go the same. Obviously without any illnesses and injuries. So yeah, I expect to go in there and win quite predominantly. Whether that comes with a stoppage, I think Ricky Summers is a very tough, strong guy, and he'll want to stay in there for the full 12 rounds. But I'm going to do my utmost to make that very, very difficult for him. So it'll either be a wide points win, or I'll get him out of there. I would say that it'd probably be a late stoppage, because I come on strong in the later rounds. But if I catch him early, I'll certainly jump on him and take the opportunity. So if I was a betting man, I'd be looking at mid to late stoppage or a wide points victory.
Okay, bad news for Ricky Summers. Now listen, Frank, as you know, it's always a pleasure, my friend. Enjoy yourself tonight. Thanks for giving us a piece of your time, and we'll speak again after your fight, of course.
Joey, thank you very much. Thanks for the exposure and the interview.
And that wraps up what has been episode 79. That makes it 159 guest appearances in 79 shows, just over the equivalent to 2 per show. Steve Cunningham was world champion number 30 we've hosted on the show as well. It's been a pleasure bringing you yet another episode of the BoxHard Podcast. A big thank you to our 2 guests, the former Cruiserweight King Steve Cunningham and one of the coolest cats in boxing, the British light heavyweight champion Mr. Frank Buglioni. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. Ayaz Sumra has been Ayaz Sumra. We hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next week.